What if you went to spend the weekend with your friends in a cabin in the middle of nowhere? Unfortunately, you'd soon realize you made a massive screw up because the former residents of the place came back to life, and they're not thrilled about people trespassing on their land. Now, you've got to escape this cursed spot, but it won't be easy since the area is being monitored and controlled by the government, whose goals are way darker than you'd imagine. What would you do in a situation like this? This is the story of The Cabin in the Woods, a movie released in 2011 that you guys begged me to cover in the last poll. So, I'm gonna break down the plot, point out everything these clueless kids should have done to survive, and of course roast the boneheaded decisions that got some of them killed. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button to catch more videos like this, and most importantly, smash that like button. The movie kicks off at a secret government facility where we meet two guys, Hadley and Sitterson. They're chatting about random stuff until Lynn interrupts them, clearly shaken. She says she just found out that the Swedish branch of their operation failed, and now humanity's future depends entirely on the American and Japanese facilities. The scientists tell her to chill, assuring her that it's never happened that all the branches failed in the same year. Hadley explains that Japan has a perfect record. They've never messed up once. America, on the other hand, slipped up back in 1998. Meanwhile, we meet Dana, a college student who fell for her professor. But after hooking up, the guy dumped her by email. Classy. Dana doesn't even blame him, even though her roommate Jules insists the professor's just a total jerk. The girls are waiting for a ride to the cabin for the weekend. Jules mentions her boyfriend invited a buddy from the football team to keep Dana company. But Dana's heart's still bruised, so she's not exactly in the mood for a rebound. That's when Kurt, Jules' boyfriend, shows up. Along for the trip are Marty, a weed-loving conspiracy theorist who believes literally every crazy theory out there, and Holden, Kurt's friend, who's eager to sweep Dana off to a dark corner. The crew hits the road in an RV, and as they head out, we see a government agent reporting that the kids have departed and everything's on schedule. On the way, their GPS craps out, so they stop for gas and directions. They meet Mordecai, a creepy backwoods type whose family's lived there since the Civil War. Yeah, the wrong side of it. When Kurt calls him out, Mordecai loses it and calls Jules a harlot, which almost gets him a beatdown. Not the smartest move when Thor's standing right there. Still, they get their directions and drive off. Passing through a tunnel under a mountain, an eagle tries to fly across a nearby canyon and gets vaporized by an invisible force field. Finally, they arrive at the cabin, which gives off major Evil Dead vibes. Holden picks a room, but hates the creepy painting on the wall. He moves it, only to find it was covering a secret window that looks straight into the bathroom of the next room. Perfect timing. Dana's changing clothes. Before things get too spicy, Holden actually does the decent thing and warns her, offering to swap rooms. Still, Dana's not blind, and she can't help but check out his six-pack before she decides to be a well-behaved lady. Turns out the real voyeurs here are the government analysts, who've planted hidden cameras and bugs all over the cabin. Not only that, they're running a betting pool on who the first victim will be and how they'll die. After a swim in the lake, the group decides to play truth or dare. Never a good idea in a horror movie. Jules gets dared to make out with a mounted wolf's head, and she goes at it like she's auditioning for a different kind of movie. Suddenly, the cellar door creaks open. The kids blame the wind, but nope, it was the lab techs pulling strings. Of course, the college geniuses head down there, which is exactly what not to do in this situation. In the basement, they find a bunch of creepy artifacts, including a diary straight out of Evil Dead. Kurt can't stop fiddling with a weird puzzle sphere, but Dana's drawn to the diary. It tells the story of the Buckner family, the cabin's original residents. The daughter writes about how her dad used to beat her and her mom, and she discovered a ritual to summon spirits for revenge. The words are in Latin, and Marty, the stoner, freaks out. He begs Dana not to read it out loud. Naturally, she ignores him and chants the spell, instantly resurrecting the Buckners from their graves. Obviously, Dana never should have read the thing, and none of them should have touched anything in that basement. Anyone with half a belief in the occult knows that sometimes even touching cursed objects is enough to get you hexed. Ed and Lorraine Warren themselves claim this happens more often than people think, which is why they locked up dozens of spooky items in their basement and had priests bless the room every week. The smart move here would have been to get back upstairs and leave everything alone, but nope, the lab analysts celebrate because the maintenance crew won the bet that the Buckner family would be summoned. Hadley's annoyed though because he's always dreamed of seeing the merman unleashed. He points out that Kurt almost summoned him with the puzzle sphere if Dana hadn't gone for the diary first. Sitterson assures him the Buckners will get the job done so the Japanese branch can basically take a nap. Then we cut to Japan, where a knockoff version of Samara from The Ring is terrorizing a classroom full of kids. Back at the cabin, things slow down until Jules decides to spice it up with a sexy dance by the fireplace. Kurt's more than ready to get frisky and takes her outside, which makes no sense. There are beds inside. Instead, they risk getting bit by bugs, snakes, and much worse. Meanwhile, Marty tells Dana he feels like something's seriously off. Jules is acting way too out of character, and Kurt's suddenly playing the alpha jock role like he's in a cliche horror flick. Dana just laughs it off, saying Marty's high. She heads over to the couch with Holden, and pretty soon they're making out. Out in the woods, Kurt tries to score with Jules, but she hesitates at first. That's when the lab techs decide to crank things up a notch, releasing a chemical mist of pheromones that instantly turns Jules into Miss Spring Break 2011. Jules goes after her boyfriend with full-on ferocity, while the creepy analysts at the lab enjoy the show like it's pay-per-view. That's when Truman, a newly hired security guard, pipes up and says maybe they shouldn't be peeping on the couple in the woods. But Sitterson brushes him off, saying they're not the only ones watching. Gotta keep the customers satisfied after all. Before things can get too hot and heavy, one of the Buckners shows up and slices Jules's hand. Kurt manages to knock the creature down, but instead of running back to the cabin to warn everyone, which she had a good 40 seconds to do, Jules just lies there watching her boyfriend get stabbed in the back. That's all the time the Buckner patriarch needs to appear with a bear trap, slamming it into Jules's back and finishing her off with a saw. Hadley, watching from the lab, pulls a lever and offers up a fresh dose of blood to whoever or whatever is living in the facility's basement. Meanwhile, Marty steps outside to take a leak in the yard because apparently no one in this movie knows how to use an actual bathroom. With his brain fully marinated in weed smoke, he doesn't notice Patience Buckner, the girl who wrote the diary, sneaking up on him with a knife. Marty only survives because Kurt tackles the undead girl like it's the Super Bowl. The group barricades themselves inside the cabin, but Dana refuses to believe Jules is really dead. Against Kurt's warning, she opens the door, only for the Buckner patriarch to toss her friend's severed head right into her hands. Sweet dreams, Dana. The gang scrambles to lock doors and windows, trying to keep the zombies out. Kurt suggests they all do it together, until the scientists intervene, spraying him with a chemical that alters his thinking. Suddenly, he insists they should split up to cover more ground. Classic horror movie blunder. Like I always say, splitting up in a horror flick is the dumbest move ever. Marty and Holden should have stepped in and shut that plan down immediately. Instead, the Buckner patriarch smashes into the cabin and chaos breaks loose, scattering everyone. Marty winds up in a bedroom, accidentally knocks over a lamp, and discovers there's a hidden microphone inside. His fried brain convinces him he's starring in some weird Truman Show spin-off. To make matters worse, he stands with his back to a window, something no sane person does after watching zombies tear through doors like tissue paper. The smart move here would have been to barricade that window with the bed and every piece of furniture in reach, since it was the room's weakest point. But Marty's not exactly a genius. He gets yanked outside and fights back with the most stoner weapon imaginable, a bong, which actually knocks the zombie out temporarily. Instead of running back inside to get help, Marty bolts into the woods. Big mistake. A knife in the back drops him, and he's dragged back to the grave he crawled out of, where the Buckners finish him off. Back at the lab, Hadley gleefully pulls another lever, sending more blood down into whatever's lurking below. The whole facility shakes as if the guest of honor is getting very excited. Meanwhile, Dana and Holden take refuge in the cellar. The first thing Dana spots is a workbench loaded with knives and sharp tools. The smart move would have been for both of them to arm themselves to the teeth, ready to go full zombie slayer. But nope, neither of them even bothers. Instead, Dana gets wrapped up in the diary again, piecing together that the Buckner patriarch killed both his wife and daughter down there. Honestly, the two of them should have worried less about the creepy diary backstory and more about getting the hell out of there, because it was only a matter of time before the Buckner clan cornered them. And sure enough, the patriarch stabs Holden in the back. Dana steps up and smashes the zombie with a crowbar. That's when Kurt shows up and drags them out of the basement. The three stooges pile into the RV and gun it toward the tunnel. Meanwhile, over in Japan, we see a bunch of schoolgirls form a prayer circle and exercise a discount version of Samara from The Ring. Translation: the Japan branch failed for the first time ever. lever, leaving all the pressure on Team USA. Hadley and Sitterson quickly realize the tunnel is still open. If they don't blow it up, the kids might actually escape. Sitterson sprints to the electrical room, where the techs explain there was a glitch, and the detonation order never went through. With no other option, he rigs a manual short circuit and finally collapses the tunnel in an explosion. Kurt throws the RV in reverse, and just like that, the survivors are back to square one. At that point, I was thinking they should have at least checked whether some rocks could be moved. Maybe squeeze through a gap. But no, Kurt decides to go full Evel Knievel, planning to jump the canyon on his dirt bike that's been strapped to the back of the RV. He swears he's pulled off bigger jumps before, but I'm pretty sure he's never had to deal with an invisible force field. He slams into it within 5 seconds, gets fried like a bug zapper, and adds another tally to the body count. Holden and Dana take the wheel again, trying to find another way out, but Holden doesn't get far. He takes a knife straight to the neck from a zombie stowed away inside the RV. The vehicle plunges into the lake, and Dana barely makes it to the surface. Now, here's where I start questioning things. Technically, she could have swum to the cliff where Kurt slammed into the force field 5 minutes earlier. From the way it looked, the barrier was above the water line. If it had gone all the way down, Dana would have been fried the second she hit the lake, meaning she probably could have dived under and come out the other side. But no, instead she climbs up on the dock to breathe, only to get smacked around by the practically immortal Buckner Patriarch, who apparently just refuses to die. Back in the control room, the scientists pop champagne like it's New Year's Eve. Hadley tells Truman the mission is complete. Dana doesn't actually have to die. She just has to suffer enough to please the big guy downstairs. But then Hadley gets a phone call with bad news. Dana isn't the last one standing. The ritual isn't finished. Here's what I don't get. These scientists are supposed to be geniuses, but they couldn't even double check a heart monitor. They were tracking everyone's vitals, so all they had to do was confirm whether a victim was actually dead before feeding the blood to the ancient evil in the basement. When Buckner's about to finish Dana off, Marty suddenly shows up alive and well, blocking the kill. He drags Dana to the Buckner's gravesite and reveals a secret chamber. Turns out he managed to blow up the zombie that grabbed him earlier. He shows her an elevator and explains that someone used this whole system to deliberately unleash the monsters on them. With no other options, Marty hotwires the elevator and they descend into the secret facility. They come face to face with all sorts of nightmare fuel, werewolves, spirits, and even a bargain bin version of Pinhead. Sitterson orders a guard to take Marty out, since Dana can't die before he does. But this guard must have graduated from the Boy Scouts Academy, because instead of doing the smart thing, waiting behind the elevator doors and shooting Marty the second he steps out, he points his gun and demands Dana step aside first. Big mistake. The severed hand of a dead zombie grabs his ankle, distracting him long enough for Marty to finish him off. Dana and Marty are chased by an elite squad and hide in a control booth inside the main lobby. That's when Dana notices the elevator control panel, the one holding all the creatures. She pulls the lever, unleashing every single monster in the facility. Within seconds, the beasts tear through the strike team, leaving 11 more corpses for the count. The scientists could have prevented all this chaos if they just posted a couple of guards at the control panel. Seriously, it's the most important piece of equipment in the whole facility. 2 guys with guns could have shot Marty and wrapped up the ritual, but nope. The script needed Dana to free the monsters, so here we are. And from that moment, it's a full-blown gore buffet. Creatures tear through employees left and right. A face-hugger wannabe latches onto a guard. A giant cobra swallows a scientist whole. And another scientist takes herself out in pure panic. Add in 19 more unlucky staff members who get shredded by other creatures, and you've got one heck of a bloodbath. Meanwhile, Marty and Dana crawl out of hiding and witness the chaos they've unleashed, right in time to see a scientist get torn apart by a giant rabid bat. The survivors make a run for it, with Marty even pulling off a slick headshot on a zombie along the way. They slip out through a hole in the wall, but 5 other scientists aren't so lucky. One gets skewered by a cranky unicorn, another gets eaten by the werewolf, and 3 more get shredded by an evil Ronald McDonald lookalike. Elsewhere, Truman, Lynn, Hadley, and Sitterson hole up behind a vault-style door, but their luck runs out when a gang of scarecrows blow the door door open. Truman goes out in a blaze of glory by detonating himself along with the monsters, while Lynn gets dragged off by a kraken. Remember Hadley's dream about finally seeing the merman in action? Yeah, it finally comes true, as the poor guy gets swallowed by the creature. Careful what you wish for. Sitterson is the only one who manages to escape through an emergency hatch, but his victory is short-lived. Dana stabs him in the chest, mistaking him for an enemy. With his last breath, he tells her she has to kill Marty. Instead, Dana and Marty stumble into an ancient chamber where they meet the director. She lays out the whole truth. Every year, human sacrifice rituals are carried out worldwide to appease the old gods. A bunch of cruel deities lurking beneath the earth. Each region has its own rules. In America, the 5 archetypes must be offered: the whore, Jules, the athlete, Kurt, the scholar, Holden, the fool, Marty, and the virgin, Dana. The order doesn't matter, as long as Jules dies first and Dana either dies last or is the final survivor. If the ritual isn't completed, the old gods will rise up and wipe out humanity. Naturally, this messes with Dana's head, and she points a gun at Marty. The guy can't believe the nerve of his so-called friend, and he doesn't even bother warning her about the werewolf sneaking up behind her. The beast mauls Dana, and the director seizes the moment to finish Marty off and wrap up the ritual. But seriously, why didn't this woman, with all the resources of the facility at her disposal, just grab a gun and shoot Marty herself before the endless monologue? Boom, ritual complete, humanity saved. But nope, plot convenience strikes again. Just as the director is about to kill our favorite stoner, Patience Buckner suddenly shows up and buries an axe in her head. Marty takes advantage of the chaos, shoves both women into the abyss, and reunites with Dana. She apologizes for almost shooting him 2 minutes earlier, and the two share a hug, deciding maybe mankind had its run, and it's time for another species to take over. And that's exactly what happens. One of the old gods, pissed off about the incomplete sacrifice, rises from the earth, demolishes the base, and smashes his way to the surface. The Cabin in the Woods was actually a critical darling, scoring high praise from reviewers and audiences alike. Personally, I think it's one of the coolest horror movies of the 2010s, because it not only develops its characters in a fun way, but also flips the haunted cabin trope completely on its head, mixing in layers of meta horror and fresh ideas. The creature design is a blast too. The practical effects, costumes, and prosthetics look fantastic. The CGI monsters? Not so much. That stuff feels pretty low budget. Still, with a tight pace and a killer twist ending, I'd give Cabin in the Woods a solid 8 out of 10. At the box office, it did decently well. Budget was around $30 million, and it pulled in $69 million worldwide. Not bad for a film this wild. Without further ado, let's get to the kill count. In total, we had 51 bodies, as the Body Bag Award goes to Truman. I see you on the next video, and bye!